Tommy Grant pushed through the thick plants and vines that covered the forest floor of 7. His small feet moved quickly over the rough ground. The boy was 7 years old and had never known any world except this one. Earth was just a story his mother told him before bed. To Tommy, this jungle was home. It was strange and full of things that could hurt him, but it was home. The colony sat behind him, protected by walls and fences that his mother said kept the dangerous creatures out. But Tommy had slipped past the gate when no one was looking. He wanted to see more. He wanted to see what lay beyond the safe places. The trees here were taller than buildings. Their bark was purple and covered in spots that glowed faintly in the afternoon light. The air was thick and hot. Insects the size of Tommy's fist flew between the branches, making sounds like machinery. Nothing here was like Earth. His mother had shown him pictures of Earth when she was teaching him history. The forests there were different. The animals there were smaller. Everything here was bigger, louder, stranger. Then Tommy saw it. A formation of crystals jutted out from the ground between the roots of 3 massive trees. The crystals caught the light and threw colors across the ground like a rainbow. Tommy had never seen anything so beautiful. He ran toward it, his shoes splashing through a puddle of dark water. As he approached the crystals, Tommy did not notice the change in the forest around him. The insects had stopped their noise. The birds, if they were birds, had stopped their calls. The jungle had gone quiet. This was a warning. Every living thing on 7 knew what the silence meant. They moved through the trees with perfect silence. They were pack hunters, smart and mean. Their bodies were lean and built for speed. Their skin was dark purple, almost black, and covered in scales that looked like armor. They had 4 legs and 2 arms that ended in claws that could tear through metal. Their eyes were large and caught every movement. They could see in the dark. They could smell blood from far away. They were the apex predators of this world, and they were very, very smart. The pack leader was called Tooth by the humans, though they had a sound for his name that no human mouth could make. Tooth was larger than the others. His skin was marked with scars from old fights. He had lost one ear in a battle with another pack. He moved without sound through the jungle, and his pack followed behind him. Tooth had been watching the human colony for many weeks. He had sent his scouts to study the humans. He had learned things. He had learned that the humans were not as strong as they seemed. They relied on tools and weapons that could hurt his people, but they were faster and stronger. More important than this, Tooth had learned something else. The humans cared about their young. They would do anything to protect them. This was weakness. Tooth knew how to use weakness. When Tooth saw the small human child walk past the protective walls of the colony, he understood that fortune had handed him a gift. The young one was alone. The young one was small. The young one was, in every way that mattered, helpless. Tooth signaled to his pack with a low sound that only they could hear. 8 warriors spread out in a circle around the crystal formation where Tommy stood. They moved slowly, careful not to make noise. They came from all directions at once so the human child could not run away. Their claws clicked against the hard ground. Their breathing was low and controlled. They were patient. They were professional. They were hunters who had done this 1,000 times before. Tommy heard them first. He turned from the crystals and saw the first shape move between the trees. It was big. It was wrong. Tommy's heart began to beat fast in his chest. He saw another shape. Then another. They were coming from all sides now. Tommy could count at least 5 of them, maybe more. Their eyes caught the light and glowed like red fire. Tommy ran. He did not think about where he was going. He just ran. The creatures chased him, moving fast through the jungle. Their claws scraped against the ground. Their breathing was heavy now. They were excited. They were closing in. They cut off his path to the left. He turned right. They cut off his path forward. He turned back toward the colony, but they were faster, much faster. Tommy's small legs gave out. He tripped over a root and fell hard onto the ground. The wind knocked out of his chest. He could not breathe for a second. He pushed himself up onto his knees. They were very close now. He could smell them. They smelled like old blood and rotting meat. Their teeth were sharp and long. Their claws scraped the ground. Tommy ran again. He did not get far. The creatures moved faster than he could run. He was trapped. He could feel it. He was going to die here in this jungle, far from his mother, and there was nothing he could do about it. Tommy saw a large rock ahead of him. He ran toward it and crouched behind it, making himself as small as possible. His hands were shaking. His whole body was shaking. He could hear the breathing on the other side of the rock. He could hear their claws scraping. He could hear the sounds of Colonel Hayes was in the command center when the call came through. He heard the boy's voice, and something cold moved through his body. In his 30 years as a soldier, had learned to control his feelings. He had learned to think clearly even when the world was falling apart. But this was a child a human child, and the colony had sworn to protect its young. Stood up from his chair. The communications officer, a young man named, was already tracking the signal. He had the location pinned within seconds. "He is outside the walls," said. 2 kilometers northeast, in the jungle sector near the Crystal Ridge. Was already moving. He grabbed his rifle from the rack on the wall. He pulled on his combat vest. He loaded ammunition into the magazines with movements that were fast and practiced. His mind was working through the problem. 2 kilometers in jungle terrain. Activity had been increasing. The child had a communicator but would not answer follow-up calls. The situation was bad. Dr. Lisa Grant was in the research laboratory when she heard the alert. The colony's warning system played a tone that meant emergency personnel needed to report to the command center. Lisa was analyzing soil samples, but she had left the communicator on. She heard her son's voice first as it came through the open channel. She heard him say he needed help. She heard the fear in his voice. Then she heard the sounds in the background. Lisa dropped the equipment she was holding. It fell on the floor and broke, but she did not care. She ran. She ran out of the laboratory. She ran down the corridors. She ran into the command center where was strapping weapons to his chest. "My son," she said. "Get my son, get him back, please." Turned to look at her. His face was hard and serious. This was a commander's face, not a friend's face. "I am going after him," said. "I need you to stay here." "No," Lisa said. "I am coming with you. He is my son." "You are not a soldier," said. His voice was not unkind, but it was final. "You would slow us down, and that makes Tommy less likely to live. I know this is hard. I know you want to go, but you will stay here and I will bring your boy back. This is not negotiable." Lisa wanted to argue. She wanted to scream. Every part of her wanted to run into that jungle and find her son. But she knew was right. She was a biologist, not a fighter. In the jungle, she would be a liability. She could only nod, tears running down her face. Turned to Captain, who had just run into the command center. Was the best soldier in the colony besides himself. He was fast, smart, and did not panic under pressure. "Get a team ready," said. 4 soldiers, heavy weapons, medical supplies. We have a child in the jungle with activity. We move in 5 minutes. "The Council's protocol says we need to wait for the satellite reconnaissance," said. "We need to understand the terrain before we move." Stopped, he looked at with eyes that showed no emotion at all. "The protocol was made for situations where we have time," said. "We do not have time. The protocol was made for situations where waiting makes things better. It will not. I am going to get that boy. Anyone who wants to come with me should get their weapons now." Was already moving. He did not hesitate. 2 other soldiers, Daniel and second in command, a woman named Captain Sarah who was tough and reliable, were with him. Checked his rifle one more time. He looked at Lisa one final time. He did not say anything, but his expression said, "I will bring him back or I will die trying." The team moved out of the colony and into the jungle. The pack leader, Tooth, was tightening the circle around Tommy. The small human was crouched behind a rock, shaking, making small sounds of fear. Tooth could smell the fear. It was good. Fear meant weakness. Fear meant victory. Tooth raised his claws, ready to end this quickly. Then Tooth heard something in the distance. Human voices, the sound of human weapons being loaded. Tooth's ears, what was left of them, turned toward the sound. His pack heard it too. They understood what it meant. The humans were coming to fight for the small one. Tooth had expected this. He had planned for this. Tooth signaled to his pack. They would use the small human as bait. They would let the humans see the child. The humans would come, and then they would kill them all. This was the plan. This was how the hunted. Tooth did not know that Colonel Hayes had also grown up on a harsh world. Earth had the jungle erupted into violence once team came into view of the Crystal Ridge. They had set up the ambush perfectly. They came from the trees with weapons that were teeth and claws and raw, brutal strength. The first attack killed one of his team, a soldier named David, before they could even fire a shot. His body dropped to the ground, and the pack moved in for the kill. Screamed orders, and Sarah returned fire. The weapons they carried were made to kill things on alien worlds. They fired and hit their targets. One warrior went down, black blood pouring from his wounds. The others did not stop. They did not even slow down. They were hunters. They were used to death. Their companions fell around them, but the pack kept attacking. Tommy crouched behind the rock and covered his ears with his hands. The sound of the fighting was too loud, too terrible. Guns were firing. The creatures were screaming. People were screaming. The earth was shaking from the impact of all the movement. Fought with his rifle like a man who had seen too much combat to be afraid anymore. He hit target after target. One charged at him, swung his rifle like a club and connected with the creature's jaw, breaking bone. The creature fell, kept moving. He kept fighting. But there were too many of them, always too many. Captain Sarah went down, an injury to her shoulder making her slow. Moved to cover her, firing at the creatures that were closing in. Understood what was happening. They were being overrun. They would lose this fight. Then something changed in the jungle. The sound came first, a roar that was deeper and louder than anything that could make. It was the sound of raw anger. It was the sound of fury that had lived in the deep jungle since the beginning of time. Every creature in the jungle, including the humans and turned to look. A massive honey badger emerged from the thick forest. The creature was nearly 2 meters long. Its body was covered in thick fur that was dark brown and black. Its hide was so dense that even the weapons had a hard time piercing it. This was a creature that had fought other massive predators and won. This was a creature that lived by rules that were older than intelligence. It was pure survival, pure strength, pure, absolute fury. The honey badger did not think about what it was doing. It did not make plans. It saw the attacking the humans and the small human, and something deep inside its ancient brain responded. This creature knew humans. It had seen them on the world before they built their colony. It had learned that humans, when they fought to protect. The honey badger recognized this, and the honey badger responded. The first warrior who tried to fight the honey badger learned a lesson in pain. The badger's claws raked across the creature's face. The warrior screamed and fell back, blood pouring from deep wounds. The honey badger did not stop. It charged directly at the pack with no fear, no hesitation, no thought at all except destruction. One tried to use his claws and teeth against the badger. The badger grabbed him by the arm and threw him like the creature weighed nothing. The hit the ground hard enough to break bones. He did not get up. Another tried to attack from the side. The badger spun and caught him with a blow from its thick tail that sent him flying through the air. The warrior crashed into a tree and slid down to the ground, dazed and broken. Tooth, the pack leader, realized what was happening. He had underestimated something. This was bad. This was very bad. The humans were still fighting. The honey badger was ripping his warriors apart, and the small human was still alive. Tooth made the decision to retreat. He called to his remaining pack with a sound that meant run. The warriors who could still move turned and ran into the jungle. The honey badger followed, unable to stop the rage that was burning through it. Tooth disappeared into the dark forest, and the sounds of the fighting grew distant. Was breathing hard. His team was wounded but alive. The honey badger had saved them. The massive creature stood there in the clearing, looking at the humans with eyes that held intelligence. The badger was covered in blood that was not its own. It was breathing heavily. Its fur was matted and torn in places where they had managed to wound it. But it was alive, and it was watching them. Raised his gun slowly, ready to shoot if the badger attacked. Put his hand on its arm and shook his head. This creature had not attacked them. This creature had fought against their enemy. This creature had chosen to protect them. Tommy came out from behind the rock. He walked toward the massive badger with a child's curiosity. The badger did not move. Tommy reached out his small hand toward the creature's face. The badger's eyes followed the movement. For a moment, human and beast looked at each other. Tommy saw not a monster, but a protector. The badger saw not a threat, but one of the vulnerable ones it had just defended. Then slowly, the honey badger turned and walked back into the jungle. It moved with the same silence it had come with. Within moments, it was gone, and they were alone in the clearing. Holstered his weapon, he moved to Tommy and picked the boy up in his arms. He held him tight. "It is okay," said. "We are going home." Aught humans things, it had taught them to survive. It had taught them to protect their young. At the journey back to the colony took less time than the journey out. Carried Tommy the entire way. And Sarah moved with weapons ready, watching for any more movement. But the jungle was quiet now. The honey badger had made sure of that. When they reached the gates of the colony, Lisa was waiting. She had been waiting since left. She had not sat down. She had not eaten. She had just stood in the command center and watched the clock. When she saw come through the gate with Tommy in his arms, something broke inside her. She ran forward and took her son, holding him so tight that Tommy had to ask her to let him breathe. The colony doctor examined Tommy and found that he had no serious injuries. He was scared and tired, but he would be fine. Lisa held his hand while the doctor worked. She did not let go. That night sat in the command center and wrote his report. He explained what had happened. He explained how they had tried to use the boy as bait. He explained how his team had fought. He explained about the honey badger. The communications officer was looking at footage from the drones that had followed the team into the jungle. The honey badger was visible in several frames. It was massive, it was powerful, and it had, without question, saved the lives of his team and the boy. "This is not normal," said. "Animals do not do this. They do not interfere in conflicts that are not their own." "This one did," said, "and we need to understand why." The next day met with Dr. Lisa Grant in her laboratory. She had been reviewing data about the planet's wildlife. She had been studying the honey badger population for months. The creature was intelligent. Not intelligent like humans were intelligent, but intelligent in the way that the most dangerous predators on Earth had been intelligent. It could solve problems. It could learn. It could remember. "I think the honey badger understood what was happening," Lisa said. "I think it understood that they were hunting the young one, and I think it understood that we were protecting him. The badger does the same thing. It protects the young ones in its population from threats. I think the badger recognized a situation it understood, and it responded." Nodded slowly. It saw the child in danger, and it helped. "Yes," Lisa said. "It recognized a moral situation. It saw something that needed to be protected, and it acted." 3 days later, the Galactic Council sent a message. They were sending a delegation to investigate the colony's conflict with the... They would arrive in 1 week. The message made it clear that the Council had questions about the colony's ability to protect itself. There was mention of pulling the colony's independent status. There was mention of placing it under Council military control. Understood what this meant. The Council saw the colony as weak. They saw the attack as proof that humans could not survive on this world without help. When the Council delegation arrived, was ready for them. He brought them to the site of the battle. He showed them the evidence. He explained what had happened, carefully and clearly, using simple language. The Council delegation, made up of 3 beings from species that had been in space for thousands of years, listened without emotion. They looked at the ground where the blood had dried. They looked at the crystal ridge where Tommy had been cornered. They looked at the claw marks in the earth from the honey badger's massive paws. Then told them about Earth. He explained that humans had survived on Earth for millions of years. The planet was harsh. It was full of predators and dangers. Humans were not the biggest or the fastest or the strongest, but humans survived because they were smart. They learned their environment. They worked together. They protected the young ones no matter what. They formed alliances with other creatures. They lived by a simple rule. When something threatens the ones you are responsible for, you fight. You do not calculate odds. You do not think about retreat. You fight. The thought we were weak, said. They thought a species that cares about its young was a species that could be defeated. They were wrong. They thought we did not understand this world. They were wrong about that too, and they thought we were alone. They did not understand that on this world, just like on Earth, when something fights to protect the helpless, others will answer. The Council delegation did not respond immediately. They left the site and returned to their ship. They spent 2 days reviewing data. They spoke with the colony's scientists. They interviewed and his team. The colony began to change after the Council delegation left. New supplies and equipment arrived. The colony's defensive systems were upgraded. More scientists came to study Seven and its creatures. The humans of the colony were no longer considered a small, weak outpost on the edge of space. They were considered something more important. They were considered survivors. Tommy Grant became something of a celebrity in the colony. He was the boy who the honey badger saved. He was the symbol of the colony's success. But Tommy did not care about being famous. He cared about the jungle. He cared about the creatures he had seen. And he cared about the massive honey badger that had come out of nowhere to protect him. Dr. Lisa Grant started a new research project. She studied the honey badger population in depth. She learned that the creatures were indeed intelligent. They were family-oriented. They were fiercely protective. They lived by instincts that were millions of years old, and they did from time to time intervene in situations outside their immediate family. They had a sense of justice. They had a sense of right and wrong, even if that sense was different from human understanding. Lisa's research changed the way the colony saw the planet. Seven was not a dangerous place full of monsters. It was a living world with its own rules and its own wisdom. The creatures here were not just predators to be killed or avoided. They were beings with their own lives and their own values. Colonel Hayes continued to lead the colony, but he led it with a new understanding. He established protocols for working with the honey badger population rather than against them. He set aside protected territories where the creatures could live without human interference. He made sure that the colony's hunting and expansion did not damage the ecosystem that had ultimately helped them survive. 1 year after the attack on Tommy stood on the edge of the colony and looked out into the jungle. The sun was setting. The trees were glowing with that faint purple light. The insects were making their evening sounds. Everything was as it had been before, but everything had changed too. A massive shape moved in the distant trees. The honey badger had come to the edge of the colony again. It had been coming to the edge regularly since the attack. It would stand in the dark for a while, watching. Then it would disappear back into the jungle. Did not know if the creature remembered them. He did not know if the creature understood gratitude or friendship the way humans did. But he knew something important. He knew that on this harsh world far from Earth, humans had learned something crucial. They had learned that strength was not about being the biggest or having the most weapons. Strength was about standing up for the ones you loved. Strength was about understanding your environment. Strength was about recognizing an ally when one appeared. Strength was about protecting the helpless, no matter what the cost. And sometimes, strength meant knowing when to respect another creature's power and let them help. The honey badger watched from the jungle for a while longer. Then it turned and walked back into the darkness. But it would return. It would always return. Tommy, now 8 years old, stood next to. He had come to the edge of the colony to watch the sunset. He had heard that the honey badger sometimes appeared here, and he wanted to see it. "Will it come back?" Tommy asked. "Yes," said, "I think it will." "Why?" Tommy asked. Thought about this for a moment. He thought about a creature that lived by instinct and power. He thought about a boy who had almost died in the jungle. He thought about a species that had survived on a harsh world for millions of years by protecting their young. "Because," said, "some things are worth protecting, and some creatures understand that. They understand it without needing to be taught. It is just part of who they are, just like it is part of who we are." Tommy nodded. He did not fully understand, but he understood enough. He understood that the world was bigger and stranger and more complex than he had thought. He understood that sometimes help came from unexpected places. He understood that courage was real and it mattered. The two of them stood there as the sun went down and the stars began to appear above them. The colony lights came on in the distance. The jungle sounds grew louder as night fell. Somewhere in the darkness, a massive honey badger moved through the trees, watching over the strange new creatures that had come to share its world. A bridge had been built between species. It had been built with blood and courage, and the simple understanding that protecting the helpless was a value that transcended biology and evolution and the differences between creatures. It had been built by a child who wandered into the jungle looking for crystals. It had been built by a soldier who refused to accept that his world could not be saved. And it had been built by a creature that lived by instincts older than civilization. And that bridge would hold. Then they sent their decision. The colony would remain independent. The pack had been labeled an aggressive force and would be monitored by Council forces. The humans had demonstrated the ability to survive on 7. More than that, they had demonstrated something the Council had forgotten about. They had demonstrated the power of courage, the power of sacrifice, the power of fighting for something more than just survival. One of the Council members, an ancient being from a species that had been traveling the stars for 10,000 years, made a statement before they left the colony. "We came here believing that a young species protecting a child was weakness," the being said. "We were incorrect. We have seen many things in our time among the stars, but we have not seen this in a long time. We have seen strength. We have seen courage. We have seen something that technology and numbers cannot easily defeat. We have seen hope. Any cost, it had taught them that sometimes you have to fight even when the odds are against you." And his team moved through the jungle with purpose. They did not hide. They did not move quietly. They moved with the speed of soldiers who knew what they were doing. Their weapons were ready. Their eyes were alert. They would reach Tommy. They would get him back to safety. And if they wanted a fight, they would get one. Them moving closer. His communicator. His mother had given him a communicator to keep on his wrist. He pressed the button with a shaking finger. His voice came out small and scared. "Help," he said. "Help me. There is something out here. It is big. It is going to hurt me. Help me, please." There was static, then a voice. The voice of Colonel Hayes, the commander of the colony. "Tommy, I can hear you. Stay calm, tell me where you are. But Tommy could not answer. They were coming over the rock now. They were coming down. Their claws were ready. Their teeth were ready. This was the end.